Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to Wicca 303. Today's topic is acting as a priest when needed. Unlike other forms of witchcraft or devotional paganism in general, Wicca is expressly a priestly path, whether someone is solitary or works with a coven. So, what does that mean, especially for those who generally practice alone? For a start, you function as your own priest. You, as a solitary practitioner, undertake the responsibility for planning and performing rituals, for doing the moon cycles, seasonal changes. You are in charge of how you practice on a daily basis and discerning what brings you closer to the divine and what doesn't. You are the one who makes yourself sit down and meditate, or to work on your grimoire, or to do dream work, or any other number of things. You have taken on the responsibility of being in charge of your own spiritual life. This process of assuming those duties, integrating the spiritual and the mundane more successfully, is quite instructive and it's confidence building. The more you practice, the more confidence you have and the more perspective you gain. Understanding theory and memorizing various points of doctrine is all very well, and certainly that's a necessary part of the process. But the rubber doesn't really hit the road until you practice it. And in the case of Wicca, that also incorporates acting in a priestly capacity when needed. As paganism is growing, which it is in the Western world, more and more pagans are going to be wanting to have rituals for important milestones in life. So let's go over a few. First, birth. Now, as pagans, we don't baptize our children into our religions or pre commit them to our belief systems because we know they may or may not, as adults, think differently than we do. But many parents do like to formally introduce their children to their spiritual community and to their gods and make a bit of a ceremony of it. So that's an opportunity to act in that priestly function, performing a blessing of that kind. Then we have coming of age. The process of growing from child to adult deserves recognition that the young person's life is changing and they're entering into a new chapter. It's good for them to have a ceremony acknowledging this, in the eyes of the gods, their community, their parents. And again, this is another time when you might be called upon to take the lead in a priestly capacity, planning a ceremony, going over what would be meaningful in that situation, all sorts. And then, of course, marriage. Why should any pagan couple settle for having a civil ceremony or worse, having to have a ceremony that's performed by clergy of another religion that's reflecting a very different religious worldview when they decide to marry? Why should that be anyone's situation? Because when people get married in a pagan way, that is an outstanding opportunity to display to the community an important aspect of our faith, the formation of families and formalizing unions and saying, yes, we're going to face a life together. And of course, if you are acting in that priestly capacity, that means you need to go out and get the legal paperwork done in order to make yourself available for officiating legal unions. It's an important part of the job. And then divorce, the other side of the spectrum. While signing the dotted line on a divorce decree is enough to settle things in the legal context, a pagan ex couple would be wise to have a ceremony dissolving their spiritual ties as well. And even though this is a very sad occasion, it is a time for a pagan priest to be of service to them. Then entering cronehood and sagehood. This is another rite of passage. It's a healthy thing for us to restore the dignity of old age and to embrace the maturity that often goes hand in hand with advancing years. And this is another time when having a ritual to mark that transition can be very helpful to people. And then, of course, death. No one looks forward to a funeral, much less having to perform one. But we humans, we are mortal, and at some point, our current incarnations will end, and then, of course, a funeral will need to be held. And again, why should this be handled in a secular way or in a religious way that does not reflect the true beliefs of the deceased? A pagan priest should be prepared to hold funeral rituals when necessary. There's an increasing desire for us to form pagan community, and that means that important life events, seasonal community celebrations, and all sorts of things will become group events more often and more commonly in the future. And of course, such events will need to be organized. Someone needs to conduct them. So the question is, are you ready and are you willing to take on that role if called upon? Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about, elbowing your way in or anything like that, or showing up where, you were not asked for or needed. But the question is really, are you willing to be available to your fellow pagans if they do ask you to take on those tasks? Or are you willing to make it known that you would be willing to do such things? Because this is a responsibility, and responsibility that goes along with priesthood, whether we're talking about Wicca or any other pagan tradition in which someone has been called to a priestly role. And this is another reason why I encourage students of Wicca to just periodically take a step back and ask themselves, is this really what they want? Is this really what they're suited for? And there's no shame if that answer is no. And certainly if you are called to the craft, but not the Wiccan form of it, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's about you making sure of where your spiritual home is and making sure that you get to that place. That's the important thing. Now, homework for February 9th through February 15th. Number one, do you have specific rituals written down in your Book of Shadows or your grimoire for moon observance, the sabbats, and rites of passage in life? Do you have those? Number two, are you happy with those rituals if you do have them? And if not, it's time to research perhaps how other people conducted those rituals, do some brainstorming, and consider how you might do them yourself. And three, write a ritual that acknowledges the next life stage you will enter into. Sometimes by doing and practicing, that's how we get into a better headspace for how we might be of service to others as well, having gone through a dress rehearsal of the practice, so to speak. So that's what I have for you this week. Next week, we will be discussing the witch's heart, so do come back for that. In the meantime, comments, questions, concerns, complaints, hand them over to me in the comments section or write me an email at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com, and I will attend to your concerns there. But that will do it for now, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.